that didn't get your feet to tapping, I don't know what will. I have a feeling that most of you have, at one time or another, seen Walt Disney's full-length animated classic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You all know the story about the lovely princess whose evil stepmother is so jealous of her beauty that she arranges to have her killed. The huntsman who was given the assignment cannot go through with it and instead leaves her in the woods where she is taken in by a band of dwarfs. Ultimately, the wicked queen, a witch with magical powers, finds Snow White and, in disguise as an old woman, gets her to eat a poisoned apple, which puts her to sleep, a sleep which will last until she is awakened by love's first kiss. The dwarfs come home to find Snow White unconscious and chase her attacker through the forest until she falls over a cliff to her own doom. Then they place the princess in a glass-enclosed casket and mourn her passing. Along comes a traveler who, of course, is Prince Charming. He sees the sad scene, falls in love with the young victim, delivers the wake-up kiss, and they naturally live happily ever after. Now, why bring this up and talk about childhood entertainment on this Labor Day Sunday? Well, as is true of most such Disney movies, there is a good deal of music. It seems as if all fairy tale princesses can sing. And in the case of this film, so can dwarfs. One of the best scenes in the movie, at least in my estimation, comes when the seven little men are going to their labors in their diamond mine, marching along over hill and dale while singing, hi ho, it's off to work we go. I'm not going to ask you to sing it, but I am sure that you all could. Those of you who are employed, is that the spirit in which you begin your day as you head for work? Those of you who are retired, is that the way you used to go to your job, whatever and wherever it was? Naturally, you probably don't or weren't zipping along a forest path with a pickaxe or a shovel over your shoulder, but you get my drift. I am always amused when I hear politicians talk about working people. Isn't everyone who has a job working people, as well as those who don't have paying jobs but work nonetheless, perhaps as volunteers for organizations and causes or in their homes? Oh, I know who the politicians are referring to. They are trying to make points with middle-class folks and blue-collar workers, you know, the ones they usually neglect when it comes to anything substantive and only remember before elections. But these people are also the ones that Labor Day was originally designed for and established to honor and celebrate. In this morning's scripture lesson, I read to you about Jesus' calling of his first disciples, Peter, Andrew, James, John, Matthew. Did you notice what they were all doing when he approached them about becoming his followers? They were all working. The first four were two pairs of brothers, and they were fishermen. We are told that Jesus came upon him when he was walking by the Sea of Galilee as they were casting their nets. We don't know if he had vetted them ahead of time. We are not given a whole lot of information at this point. Regardless, he told them to follow him and that he would make them fishers of men. We also don't know if they knew anything about this itinerant preacher and teacher, but in any case, they dropped what they were doing, left their homes and their jobs and their families, and became Jesus' apostles. Somewhat later, we hear about how Matthew joined the group. Now, Matthew was a tax collector, and therefore one of the most unpopular people in that society at that time. While tax collectors have never been particularly well liked, those in Jesus' day were really hated. Because, you see, not only did they work for the enemy and collect money from their own people to give to these oppressors, they fattened their own purses by taking more than the law demanded and keeping it for themselves. Hence, a double whammy. Regardless, that was Matthew's job, and he was working at his job when Jesus came along. Strange that Jesus should choose one such as him, most assuredly. But choose him Jesus did. And as with the four fishermen, who were not high on the professional and social ladder, but at least had employment which was considered honorable, Matthew left his booth and followed Jesus as soon as Jesus asked him. The Bible really doesn't tell us about the calling of the other 7 disciples, but perhaps we can assume that their experience was similar to those of the men already mentioned, that Jesus found them at their labors and asked them to join his band. Jesus was obviously after working people to help accomplish what he perceived to be his God-given mission in and to the world, and probably figured that such extraordinarily ordinary individuals, the salt of the earth, if you will, would be loyal, would be committed, would be zealous as they labored with and for him with their customary work ethic approach. Gina Barreca is an English professor at the University of Connecticut, as well as a feminist scholar and humorist who has written 8 books and is a columnist for the Hartford Courant. She has written the following piece regarding Labor Day, a piece entitled, "To Mark Labor Day, 10 Truths About Jobs," and which I would like to share with you this morning. To celebrate Labor Day, here are 10 truths about day jobs. Number 1, never look down on somebody who holds a job and rides the bus to the end of the line. These are the people who labor their whole lives but are never rewarded with tangible success. Not every dog has its day. Some simply work their tails off. My father was one of those guys, never missed a day, never missed a beat, and barely made a dime. But he taught my brother and me how to get a job done. Old Italians would grab their kids and say, "The more you have in there," pointing to our heads, "the less you have to put on there," pointing to our backs. My brother and I benefited from my family's integrity, my father's integrity, his stamina, and his gratitude for having a job. Number 2, most of the people actually working on Labor Day are the ones who really deserve the day off. Declared a federal holiday in 1894, it's meant to be a day of street parades illustrating the strength and esprit de corps of the trade and labor organizations, followed by food and festivities for the workers' families, according to the U.S. Labor Department. Not anymore, at least not for folks selling groceries, serving food, or manning the mall for the back-to-school rush. If you know how to run a register or deal non-violently with customers who bark, "What do you mean I need a different size? I'm a 6. I've always been a 6. Get me the manager," you'll be required to show up for a double shift. Number 3, of course, some people take Labor Day quite seriously. My friend Heidi gave birth to her daughter. Number 4, just as every great job has a terrible hidden cost, every terrible job has a wonderful, if small or secret, payoff. My husband worked at a deli when he was in high school, and although he hated standing on his feet 7 hours a day cutting fatty meats, including slicing tongue, which unnerves him to this day, he was able to eat his body weight in cold cuts, rye bread, and coleslaw. He was a lanky kid. He appreciated the fresh food and the conversations with the customers. The job changed his life. Number 5, every job teaches you something apart from the skill you're using at work. I learned one big lesson when working inventory at Barnes & Noble when it was the world's biggest bookstore in a real building on Fifth Avenue. This was long before online ordering. We wrote down ISBN numbers on small slips of paper and went to the warehouse to retrieve titles. It became obvious that certain old volumes had new fans every day because we were always restocking them, while some wildly hyped and well-reviewed new books never sold a copy. It was then that I learned that many slick novels had a shorter shelf life than cannoli. Let's say it changed the focus of my literary ambitions. Number 6, every young person should have a job for an extended period of time when he or she needs to show up on time, in clean clothes, wide awake, in a convincingly cheerful mood. Faking it is fine. Nobody cares what your real mood is because it's not about you. And prepared to complete whatever task is assigned. This is not about being exploited. This is about learning how to separate your public life from your private life. The idea is to learn to slough off the whiny self that moans, "I don't feel like doing that today." Number 7, you can't retire before you're 30 any more than you can age with dignity before you're 22. That's just silly talk. Number 8, we're told you should follow your dreams and become financially independent as if these two were twinned. Avoid building a future based primarily on your inner promptings without establishing your economic security first. Figure out how to make rent and pay bills. Not even with crowdsourcing will your bliss necessarily lead directly to the bank. Number 9, there's no major investors' day for the same reason there's no Men's History Month. Number 10, without ever working or having worked, how can you take a break and feel whole? Here's to earning our keep. Nothing is sadder than not working, paid or unpaid, because without work, where does one find one's purpose? And how can one rest from one's labors if one has no labors? The Genesis story of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the Garden of Eden included a curse forcing mankind to work with the sweat of his brow in order to survive. This was seen as a punishment for disobedience. But was it? Rather, I think the story simply recognized reality, somewhat bemoaned how hard some people had to work, particularly in ancient times, and yet realized that without work, one can never be whole and complete. Perhaps most of us could use a bit more rest and relaxation, refreshment and rejuvenation, but our work, no matter what it is important, and we should do it proudly and as well as we are able. Take a break. Have some fun. With the right attitude, you too might sing, or at least hum, hi-ho, as off you go to do whatever you have to do. I'd like to close this morning with what is called an Irish friendship wish, a wish which touches on what I have been sharing with you. May there always be work for your hands to do. May your purse always hold a coin or two. May the sun always shine on your window pane. May a rainbow be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near you. May God fill your heart with gladness to cheer you. Happy Labor Day. As is always the case when we celebrate communion,